Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Zatlin. How's it going, man?
What a few days. What a few days, man. It's the cross country season. I like it because compared to track, it's only like four major races, and that's kind of like every other week. It gets a little bit easier versus not easier. But when these races happen, I mean, it's worse than any week in track, right? I mean, it's a lot, but it is wildly entertaining. We got Nuttycombe, we got pre-nats, we got tons of analysis, and it was really, really fun. So I hope you enjoyed the races just as much as I did.
It's always a chaotic weekend. Yeah, I mean, it is always funny to me that they have these two races on the same weekend because you kind of wish that they were split up 2 weeks apart or even a week apart, just so that we'd have a little bit more space to analyze each of them on their own. But yeah, really interesting stuff. I think there's a lot to overreact on, and maybe it
Yep.
isn't even an overreaction at this point. I mean, we're midway through the season. Like there isn't that much time. Obviously, we saw how things can change pretty dramatically after Nuttycombe, but I mean, gosh, just after experiencing it, feels like things have really kind of set with at least the teams that we've seen so far.
So before we get into it, Apple's and Spotify ratings and reviews. We got +1 on Apple. Thank you for doing that. +1 on Spotify. Thank you for doing that. We got a handful on YouTube. I forgot to put the YouTube video up last week. Ben can vouch for me. If you knew what my week was like, I just didn't have time. I apologize if that wasn't a priority, but it's gonna get up eventually. That episode and this episode as well. So I apologize. It's getting up though. Um, Ben, where do you want to start?
So we're gonna start with Nuttycombe, and I think we got to start with just obviously we can run down maybe some of the quick results on the men's side. NAU takes home the title. On the women's side, NAU takes home the title. Not a huge surprise on the men's side, big surprise on the women's side. So how do we think this changes first on from a team perspective? How does this change the way we see the title race? And maybe let's start with the women because I think that's a little bit more interesting now that NC State has finally lost a race and quite convincingly as well.
To me, I think I always thought that this was a possibility. I think when you see Sam Bush, she's kind of
Mhm.
struggled so far. I think 30th of Joe Piani, DNF. She's clearly not at top form for whatever reason it may be. And then you don't have Tanisima in there. I could kind of see this coming. And I didn't have the courage to say that NC State was going to lose, but I did say, like, man, NAU looks good. Man,
Yep.
NAU's built to upset this team. And again, I didn't have the courage to say it, but I don't think this necessarily stuns me in any way because when you add Tanisima back in there, just her alone, if she gets 10th or whatever, now we're talking, I mean, points, just a couple of them
Yep.
separating the two teams. So I wasn't necessarily shocked by the NAU women, but I mean, was it wildly impressive? Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's not super surprising to see NAU flash this kind of depth, but to be able to like out firepower
Mm-hmm.
NC State, obviously not through two, but after that, I mean, it is just extremely impressive to see the way they were able to stack the top 20. And just, I mean, their seventh runner was ahead of NC State's fifth, which I mean, is just really, really remarkable. So do you think it is NC State, NAU, and then everybody else at this point? Or, I mean, do you think Oklahoma State could factor in? I mean, Florida, I think quietly had a very, very good race. You
Mm-hmm.
throw Amelia Mazzadowni in there. You wish we could have seen her run this past weekend, but you throw her in there and they're not quite at the NC State like level, but they're not far from it.
Yeah, I would probably. I think Florida has to at least be in the conversation. I don't think they're a favorite, but I
No.
think they're a contender. I don't know if I could say that any other team is a contender. Maybe BYU's a contender, like maybe. But I think Florida, when you add Mazzadowni in, that's a scary top
Mm-hmm.
five. And I don't even think Florida had like their best day just through four
No.
runners. Like I think Asicol can be better. I think Thorner can be better. Valby can literally not be better. But, Allison Wilson, I think, is the big savior here where we didn't
Yes.
know who their five was going to be. Her to get, I believe, 38th changes the complexity of this lineup dramatically. Now, granted, you still have to have a lot of firepower to match NAU and NC State, but I think Allison Wilson may have had one of the more important results of the Nuttycombe invite.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think just knowing who that's going to be and how well she was able to run. I mean, you slot her in hopefully in that fifth spot in the future. She was better than NC State and everyone else in this field's fifth runner. So I mean, that's how impressive she was, and that was the big question mark for them. Again, they still have no depth. They're gonna need Mazadowny to come back, and they're gonna need all five of these women to run reasonably well for them to I guess, match expectations. But there is room for improvement for Thorner and Asakal for sure. It's just whether or not we can see Mazadowny come back, and then if everybody can put it together on the right day. They are just like teetering right on the line of a great race or a bad race. I think come NCAA's depending on the top five.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have more to say about that. I think you're spot on. I would agree.
So we think those are maybe the top three like teams that at least have a shot. Maybe BYU, like
I don't
Colorado,
know if
obviously
I'm
hasn't been running very well. Like we they still have people that they could bring in. Like I'm just trying to kind of condense who we think are those true, maybe not contenders, but possibilities.
favorites for title. NC State and and NAU, not necessarily in that order.
Mm-hmm.
Contender is Florida. And I'll throw in BYU. I think
Sure.
it just as a respect, throw in BYU, and then I think like could be maybe sort of possibly kinda would be like Colorado, Stanford. Am I ready to say Georgetown? I don't know if I am. I don't know if I'm ready to say Georgetown yet, but I'm getting kind of close, and I think yeah, Oklahoma State is probably the other team that I throw in there.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. It just feels like after this performance, those two teams, NAU, NC State, have really established themselves as the class of the country. And I think it's kind of crazy because I think we came into this thinking that we had like these 4 or 5 teams that really could compete. And yet here we are after Nuttycombe halfway through the season feeling like, I mean, realistically, it feels like it's just going to come down to these two at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think at this point it is. I don't know. I just don't know how, from a scoring structure standpoint from what we saw. I mean, NAU, what, 4 in the top 12? I mean, that's
Yeah.
insane. I mean, let's while we're here, Allie Upshaw, by the way. Oh my
Whew.
gosh. I'm so proud of you, Allie. I'm so proud of you. We have been harping like she can be good. She can be really good. Watch out for her. They said it in all the transfer stuff. We said it in previous articles before. Did I think she was going to place 12th? Nope. Did I think she was going to place top 20? No. But that was such a great race. She's the one who I think really changes things for NAU, where you go, oh, this is a little different. This is not what we thought it was going to happen. Her and Kira Moore have been
Yes.
game changers for what this team can be.
And honestly, everybody's been maybe with the exception of Stearns, been like 10% maybe better than we
Yeah.
kind of expected. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
for that to like happen to everybody. And then you obviously have Kira Moore and Upshaw really break away and have huge like breakout performances. I mean, that's just it's incredible to see that all happen at the same time. But let's move to the men's side and same kind of question about how this changes the title race. I don't know if it really does. I mean, at this point, it's NAU, and then we just are gonna have to wait to see how Oklahoma State looks. We didn't really learn anything about them this weekend, and it just doesn't look like anyone else in the country has even a remote chance. I mean, BYU if Klinger comes back, but we haven't seen him yet. Maybe they're a little bit more competitive, but it just doesn't look great for the rest of the country.
I'm not reporting anything. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I've heard rumors and things, and if what I'm hearing is correct, I don't know if I would expect Klinger to come back. That's my general vibe from who I've been talking to. Not reporting anything, don't firmly know, but I would be very, very surprised if he came back.
I agree with you, and I think that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he were to come back, that maybe changes things a little bit. But we haven't seen him at this point, so you can't assume anything there. But yeah, from a national title perspective, I mean, NAU just looks as good as they've ever been. That I mean, Las Harris slots right in, looking great, finishing 12th. Theo Quacks continuing to look good. Santiago Prosser proving that last year was not a fluke at all. And then they just got depth. I mean, Corey Gorga is coming on strong. I mean, that was a huge
Great
run
race.
for him. I mean, Brody Hasty doing what he always does of just being right around there. Like, I mean, he's like the perfect safety net for this team of like, hey, if you need me, I can come and slot in like 40th, 50th, like almost every big race. But if you don't need me, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say about NAU. It's almost on exactly on par with what we thought. I mean, you can get into like the individual like details. It's like, well, did they run exactly like did Bosley run exactly how we thought? Well, no, but like, I mean, they destroyed the field. What's the point? Like they destroyed the field. I
Yeah.
just don't know if there's anything that we really learned that would change my opinion. So,
So let's switch to the individual side and we'll stick with the men here. I think we came in thinking obviously Bosley was the favorite. I think
mhm.
we thought that maybe Robinson could win. We thought that Hampton Samuel Kalita could win. But it was Graham Blanks who took home the win, and Nico Young finishing second. Samuel Kalita, and Robinson and Sharp finished out the 3-4-5. How many guys do we think can win the title this year? I mean, last year it felt fairly open, but this year, I mean, it feels wide open.
It feels really wide open, like really, really, really wide open. I don't know. I think
It's at least five, right?
five,
Yeah.
five. So who would it be? I guess it would be Bosley, Blanks, Nico, Kaleda, and I guess do we want to put Robinson in there?
I think you still have to. I mean, he was right. I mean, he finished basically in a dead tie with Kalita and Young. I mean, and obviously he won this race last year. He's proven that he can run well. I mean, he was what top 10, top 15 last year at NCAA's. I think it's those five, and then I mean, I don't know if you can throw anybody else in there, but it feels like this could be a year where we see a surprise winner.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a great question. I never really thought of it like that, but that's a very good point. Um, hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's my five. I want to say someone from Oklahoma State, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're not gonna know. We're just not gonna know until NCAA's with them, like
yeah.
how they stack up. Unfortunately, it's just gonna be a guessing game. Like doing the trying to like I'm just already thinking ahead of doing NCAA predictions of All American predictions, and just like I'm gonna be throwing darts to figure out where or flipping coins to determine where the Oklahoma State guys land.
That's what we do anyways. We don't do any real analysis. We just like, yeah, got it. Cool. All right.
Women's side
Women's.
individually. So do we have a like race on our
Oh
hands
boy.
now? I mean, this was Parker Valby's first ever win against Caitlin Tui on the grass. Am I correct in saying that?
I believe so.
And what a win it was! Over 12 seconds, just dominated the entire field, and we just haven't seen Tui run like this really since her freshman year and get beat like this. I mean, she obviously has shown that she can let Valby go, like she did at NCAA's last year, and catch up to her. But I don't know if it was just a tactical error or a like just wanting to stay within herself or a fitness thing. But she just did not play this correctly in order to be able to win, and that just raises a lot of questions moving forward.
I just wanted to double check to make sure that Valby didn't beat her in 2021. She did not. Um, it it's hard because like it's Caitlin Tui, and if you're gonna beat her, you think it'd be something tactical,
Yeah,
just kind of like they did in the 1500. But Valby did exactly what she's always done: gas, 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 and it didn't just work. I mean, she destroyed her in the field. I mean, it wasn't even close in rainy and wet conditions. And I don't put it this way: who, if the national title race was next week, Who are you picking? You picking Tui or Valby?
I mean, I think I still have to pick Tui, but I think if you look at the splits, I think the concerning thing here is like, okay, sure, Valby can build up a lead through 4K. We've seen that happen before, but from 4K to 6K, I mean that's where Tui is making up ground, and she was 5 seconds slower than
Yeah,
Valby.
but I think she did try to go with her this time. Like she just tried to hang, and I think maybe that's the tactical error.
Yeah,
Maybe it is like, but like at the same time, I don't want to like you look at Volby and you go, is this just is she, like a performance that dominant? It's one thing if she wins by 2 or 3 seconds,
sure,
but a win by 12 seconds, I think you have to ask, knowing how good she already is like, is she just that much better already? Did she just
right,
make a leap? Is she healthy now? That's what she can do. Like I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I think it's a little silly to just be like, oh, she's just flat out more fit than Caitlin Tui. But after that, you
could
do
be.
have to start asking the question, and I think it's fair. I also don't think I'm ready to choose Valby for the national title before Caitlin Tui yet. But could you convince me? Sure. After that,
Yeah, I mean, these two just look like they're the class of the NCAA. I mean, Kelsey Camille ran a great race, and they just both destroyed her,
yeah.
which is absolutely crazy. So yeah, I mean, maybe Volby's taken a huge jump forward, and maybe she's just been able to run consistently for like more than 2 months in a row, and like that, I'm sure that would pay big dividends. So yeah, we got a title race on our hands in from the individual side on for the women, which I don't think we really thought we would be saying at this point in the season, which is exciting. All right, let's move on and go to biggest surprise performers. And since we're already on the individual side, let's do that with the women. Who kind of stood out to you on the women's side? I know we already mentioned Aliab Shah, but so maybe someone besides her that really like caught your attention when looking at the results.
Um, and there's so many women. I think like, and we already saw that she was really good at Joe Piani, but I think Leah Stevens placing 14th for NC State, that's like we're she's the top freshman in this field, and no, I'm sorry, Bunnish is the top freshman. Excuse
Yeah,
me, but I think I don't know. That's a really good result. Like that's a really good result, and I just think like she's going to be really dangerous and really good, and she's only getting better. And like man, what could she do on the national stage? And then like at that point, it's like oh maybe NC State maybe does have like a fourth like borderline elite low stick. So I like her a lot. And then I think Scrimgeour at seventh and Riggins at 15th. I don't know where, like Scrimgeour, fine. I can kind of see it
yep,
happening.
agreed.
Riggins, I have no idea. She's a middle distance runner. She's now one of the best cross country runners in the nation.
Riggins was my answer. It just like
Yeah.
you could see it maybe like in a like in a smaller field or like in a quicker kind of course, but to do it at Nuttycombe, a challenging course for even your longest distance type of runner, and to finish 15th, absolutely outstanding. And I mean, a big reason why Georgetown. I remember I came into the season just being like Georgetown, unexciting. Like for me, like just
Not good, not fun.
weren't like they. I just didn't see how they would be the same, much less better than they were last year, and they have proven me completely wrong. They have all improved, taken a nice step forward, and their overall depth is solid as well. It's absolutely incredible, and so also to shout out someone from the individual side, our own TSR Grace McLaughlin, like
Yeah.
29th. I
Grace,
mean,
let's go.
you look at these results and you're just like, okay, yeah, you know what? I mean, like obviously we've mentioned a few surprise names, but you look at this top 30 and you're like, yeah, these are all like outstanding women that
Really
we've
good
all
names.
talked about like for years. And then Grace is just right in there, like proving that she belongs with the country's best. Absolutely great performance. Huge for CBU as well, from the team perspective. But I mean, I think if you look at this, I mean, maybe Ryan Helmers at 28 was a really good run for her. But
I think it's
like,
Rianne. I could be wrong.
oh yeah,
I might be wrong. I might be wrong.
you very well could be right. But yeah, I mean that was another kind of big performance. But everybody else, I mean, it makes sense. So yeah, outstanding run for TSR Zone.
Yeah, I was so proud of Grace. I texted her after. Anna Peters, I think at 23rd, freshman. Like it's like one thing if Stevens is good, But
Mhm.
Peters is like, yeah, she was like good. She was pretty solid in high school, competitive wise. But 23rd to be a true low stick for Utah as a true rookie. I mean, that's like she just really did come out of nowhere, and that's really really impressive. I've been pleasantly surprised by what she's done in 2 meets so far this season. Of all like the rookies, I don't think she would have been like the top 30 or 40 rookies that I would have suggested is going to make a big leap. And Kimberly May too. I think that's the other one. You look at what she's done. I think 14th, what's she on to do? 10th? She was 10th at Virginia? 10th at Virginia, 19th at Nuttycombe. That's a really good resume. That's a really, really good resume for someone who is predominantly a 1,500-meter runner and a 1K runner.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Yeah, unfortunately, Providence didn't have the best day, which I was kind of upset
Yeah.
about. But yeah, she was certainly a bright spot. From a team perspective on the women's side, I mean, I think it has to be Georgetown, right? Georgetown in third from a surprise, like just the most surprising result. I mean,
I don't know if I would agree with that.
okay, who would you Lipscomb maybe?
I think maybe Oregon State or Lipscomb.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean
I'm sorry, but I didn't see Oregon State getting 7th.
that's fair. Them finishing in the top 10 was pretty stunning. I mean, just that obviously they had the 1-2, but the rest of that depth was just solid enough. Like it wasn't anything spectacular, but it was good enough.
The introduction of no, Sage Brooks, excuse me.
Sage Brooks. Yep.
Sage Brooks. Sorry, Grace McLaughlin. I'm getting confused now. Sage Brooks. I knew like she could be good. This is definitely on the better end of what she could have been, what she has been. That was really solid. Their fourth runner was in the top 100. I
Hmm.
mean, it was all like you said. It was all pretty solid, all things considered. And I don't know, like, they got to do that again. But that was very impressive, and was really happy to see that. And then Lipscomb, it's just pack running, all pack running. It worked beautifully. I still think like Lydia Miller can be even like a little bit better, but
Hmm.
everyone stepped up. Everyone was like 30 spots better than they should have been. It was really impressive stuff.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say a lot of nice things about Lipscomb, being that they were one of our biggest rivals at Belmont. But yeah, they ran a great race, and they I mean, finishing 10th in this field. I mean, and we'll get to this maybe later in another question, but probably one of the more impactful from a NCAA qualification
Yeah.
perspective
Mm-hmm.
performances that we saw all weekend. So yeah, and Oregon State. I mean, yeah, just awesome performance for them. But Georgetown, just I mean, they're in a completely different light now in my eyes. That now after this third place finish, it really seems like a podium finish is not out of the question, which is a crazy thing to be saying
Are they a
after what.
podium favorite?
Oh man. I mean, I would still have Florida ahead of them. I mean, maybe I guess so, because I mean I think they realistically are like a fourth, fifth, sixth kind of team, and I don't think anybody has a firm hold on that fourth spot. So I think so.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad. No, I think we're all on the same page. All right. So where are we going next?
All right, let's go to the men's side and stick with the team. Which team surprised you the most out of the
On the men's
men?
side?
Yes.
Just wanted to get caught up here. Uh, it has to be Furman.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh, right? They were eighth at Chopiani, and I was like, not good, pretty bad. Like, it, it's like they're not even the same team. It's amazing. That was incredible.
I said the Furman women were going to be top 15 at NCAA's. What I really meant was the Furman men. They're
Yeah,
going to be top
he meant the
15 at
man. He meant the
NCAA's.
men's team. Right. Totally. I don't. Like. Here's the thing. You kind of like look at the lineup and you're
You
like,
look at the
okay,
names. It's like it makes sense.
they're like, okay, yeah, I can kind of see this, but you just start doing the math and you're like, they got ninth. What? Like, I mean, it was a great run by everyone. Like everyone ran well, but it's not like they ran so much better than I ever possibly expected them to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean Carson Williams is probably the guy that stands out the most from like oh wow, that was a really good run in 71st. But like you look at Dylan Schubert, like 26th, Not surprising. Cameron Ponder, we know his talent. If he's healthy and running well, 58th is perfectly reasonable. David Allmeyer has run like around 100th at Nuttycombe, I think, before, like, or and been like top 150 at NCAA's. Not surprising to see him 100th. And then like for Williams to finish 71st and then their fifth runner finish 139th, like none of these independent of themselves are like that shocking. It's just pretty crazy that they put it all together and just had an extreme, everybody ran to their talent level or maybe a little above it.
Yeah, Almar was 116th at 2019 Nationals. So,
Yeah.
and that's the craziest part. It's like, well, what do we do now? Like, how do you like? It's not any different. They're just not any different. And so, I don't know what to do.
Depth a
Shout,
little bit of a worry there. They only had 6 runners finish, and their sixth guy was a freshman.
no, they only fielded 6 guys.
Or they only fielded 6 guys, and 6 was 266th. So not a whole lot of margin for error for that top 5.
Who's your other surprise?
I mean, I think it's either California Baptist finishing 4th or Harvard finishing 6th. Like, just the fact that I think we both thought those teams could have good days, but finishing that high was truly shocking. And I just did not see CBU having this much like pack, like this good of a pack, essentially, of having 5 guys in the top 80, a bunch of guys in that 50 to 70 range. Like they just ran incredibly solidly, and in a team field where there just wasn't a whole lot of teams that really like have a ton of firepower up front. And really this year, I think that might be the story of the year. There's not a whole lot of teams with a ton of explosive firepower, except for maybe the top 2 or 3 teams. You can podium with just a solid pack, I
Yeah.
think, this year.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, within reason, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, I think when you say a solid pack, like you would probably need to still have like 2 All-Americans
Yes.
at some capacity.
Or at least one low one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Harvard, it's not like you agree. Blank's great, Iverson great, Ben Rosa in 60th, and then Brosnan, and then who was just cracking the top 100, and then
Joe
someone who's
Ewing.
Joe Ewing. I mean, like it, they have depth out of
Mm-hmm.
nowhere. I don't know where it came from. We've been asking for this for so long, and it was like, please, please, please have depth, and they finally delivered, and it was great. Like we're like, look, this is what happens, and you have depth, and it works. So for Harvard, that was great. But yeah, CBU, going back to that pack running aspect, they drop off significantly
Yes,
after
they do.
5. That's my only worry there. But it's all like high impact, like pack running. If not to be redundant with my verbiage, but it's all very condensed and it's all pretty high up in the field. And I'm agree with you. If that gets them like if they get like a 34, 38, 43, 51, 60 kind of combination at NCAA's. I
I
don't
don't
know
even
what
think
that.
they need to be that good to be 4th.
It may, maybe I don't know.
I, I
That's a pretty good lineup, I will say.
yeah, I mean, I think if they have like someone in the top 20 and then they have like 3 guys from like 50, like, or 4 guys from like 50 to
I don't
70th, I think they're there.
I don't think they're gonna have a guy in the top 20 though.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they had Medvez run finish 23rd, so he's there. But yeah, that'd be a little bit of a big ask for him. And to your going back to your Harvard point, they had the 3rd best 6th runner in this field. If
Did they
I would have
really?
told you that coming into
No, they didn't.
this, they
The
did.
the third best 6 runner.
Yes,
Uh oh my gosh, I think you're right. That's incredible.
isn't
I
it?
would have never guessed that. That's no way. Yeah, they had the 6th best runner, and like it's actually really not that close.
No, I mean Syracuse, their 6th guy was 139, but and Notre Dame was 134, but like, and Harvard's 6th guy was 129. Like, but yeah, it's incredible that they've gotten to this point where they have one of the best like depth in the country at this point, which is wild.
That is wild. What a fun stat. I like that stat a lot. All right, let's move on. What else are we doing here?
All right, individuals from the men's side. Who surprised you there?
You go ahead. You take this. Your first
Um,
dibs.
so I mean, you look at this top group, and it's not a whole lot of surprise. I think I'll go with Syed McCall,
Yeah. Mhm.
Iowa State, excuse me, 15th. I mean, and David Malarkey 14th, right ahead of him. I mean,
Yep.
both of those guys, big breakout performances. I we knew they had talent, but just to finish this high and this good of a field, I think was rather stunning. But you look through this list, and it's not, there's not a whole lot of stunners. I mean I mean Rocky Hansen. I can't say I'm surprised because I'm the world's biggest Rocky Hansen fan all of a sudden, but him finishing sixth and going toe to toe with the best in the country. I mean, Hansen 2025 shirts, start printing them up. I'm ready to go. But I think it's those two, Mikal, and really, I mean, if he can run like this, he Iowa State's got some potential here. I think this year.
Yeah, I do believe Iowa State has potential, and I was just writing like their team ranking, and just like they have potential, but I just show it. Come on, like you're just get to that next stage, and I just didn't really get that this weekend. They
Yeah.
still ran well.
Hmm.
Like you kind of look at them and you go, 13th doesn't feel that surprising for Iowa State. It doesn't feel like that exciting, but it's actually a really pretty good result, all
But
things
you have
considered.
avenues for, like, Rop can be better, Sapierda
Yeah,
can be better. Like those, like just those two guys alone who are,
Masando can be better.
yeah, I mean, and that's their 2 through 4 guys right there. If those
Yeah.
guys can be all just like 20 spots better, which is really not asking that much from that group, like that just puts them in such a better spot moving forward.
All right, so individuals, I want to highlight Will Smith. It's not surprising that Will Smith of Gonzaga
Hmm.
was as a great runner, right? We've been like, oh, maybe he can possibly sort of kind of maybe be an All American.
Yep.
And he's been on the fringes of our rankings. He's gone in, he's gone out. Well, he finished ninth. That's really good. Like that's so far above and beyond like the I think you're a fringe guy.
Yep.
I mean, that is like you're not just an All American, you're an All American favorite, borderline lock, and like you were contending for a top 15 spot at NCAA's. Like he looked great. For a while, he was there with that top group for a
Yep.
long bit before they really kind of broke away. So I think yes, he was already good, but he was never this good before. Similar, slightly similar story, but maybe less so for both Creed Thompson and Alex Phillip.
Yep. Yeah. I think Creed Thompson has just taken a nice step forward this year. And yeah, Alex Phillip has, I mean, it's crazy like how quickly I think he's adapted. Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's not a surprise to see him up in these fields at this point. And I'll do my quick Luke Hauser victory lap again as well.
Mhm.
Proud of my guy. And not talk about the Washington team performance. Um, what team after this weekend do we feel like needs to bounce back the most moving forward? Like who needs to kind of shake off this performance and do
Men's or
something better?
women's team.
Let's stick with the men since we're already here.
I mean, the answer I think is obvious.
Stanford.
It like I don't know, man.
I don't
I
know
don't
what's
want to.
happened.
I don't know what's happened. I don't want to just bag on a team. I've been critical, but I've been trying to be pretty measured about it. But there's just some teams. It's like the Oregon, Colorado, probably nowadays BYU, NAU, and like maybe Oklahoma State, throw them in there, where there just really shouldn't be an excuse. You don't really have one. They shouldn't have been 20th in this field. Okay, they
Yeah.
didn't have Thomas Borden, but he hasn't raced since late January. And they didn't have Leo Young. Okay, sure, but half of their guys, 4 of their 8 guys were above 200th place. Ah. Obviously, I still do believe they're going to be better, but this idea that they're a top 10 team now is just completely out the door. And it's odd just because it's like a lot of them, it's not just Cole Sprout, it's a lot of them outside of Robinson are just not running well.
Yeah, I mean Sprout is kind of the one that you quickly can pick out because you would think he would be 70 spots higher in this kind of field at
Yeah.
least. And for him to just not be where we're used to seeing him run is surprising. But I mean, it should be just as surprising to see someone like Robert DiDonato finish 252nd. Like this is a guy who had a great cross country season last year, and I mean, at the very minimum, should be a top 100 runner in this field. And I mean, I don't want to be too critical of like these freshmen or redshirt freshmen who are coming in and having their first experiences with this, but it's just kind of crazy to me with a team with this kind of resources are relying this heavily on these kind of unproven guys. And I think that's just where we're at with Stanford, unfortunately, right now.
Yeah, yeah, and I do think it's fair to say, I think it's fair to say, well, hey, listen, Cole Sprout's just not at 100%. I don't know what's going on. We don't know. Like, it's obvious that everyone knows he's way more talented
Yeah.
than what that is. But this is a team that was already very top heavy to begin with, and if you lose a lot of that top heaviness, not with just Charles Hicks, but now effectively with Cole Sprout, then yeah, like there's naturally mathematically going to be a big tumble. I just didn't think it would be this big of a tumble. So I do think there's a room for a rebound. I just don't. I mean, the idea of a top 10 team now is out the door.
For me, I want to see Wisconsin bounce back with full lineup.
Oh, I
Throw Bob
disagree.
Liking. I obviously you throw Bob Liking in there and that changes. I'm just still concerned about that fifth spot. Like
And that's why that's where you're missing. They didn't have Michael Wilson, who was
that's
14th at
true.
Loyola Lakefront. If he's
But
100th in this field, they're
yeah,
third.
yeah. I don't know. I just something just doesn't feel.
Sorry, just to
I'm
clarify, if Wilson was 100th and Liking was also like at his top
right. Was
one.
like top
Sorry.
10. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I don't know. Something feels just oddly tenuous about this team, and I mean, Ellenberg has been good, but not quite as good as I thought he would be. I do like what we've seen out of Evan Bishop. I think that 82nd place finish is solid, and Sharp was great. I want to see them all run together at the same time, like and put together a little bit more of a complete. And it's possible, and I think that's why they can bounce back and they can do it probably very definitively at Big Tens, but just want to see them kind of do it.
Yeah, I mean the thing is like Liking ran so well last week out. Last time
Mm,
he was out, same thing. Michael Wilson, relatively speaking, ran pretty well. Um, So I'm not concerned. Like I think they're going to come back. And if they had run in this race, I don't think we're concerned about Wisconsin in the slightest bit. I think we go, okay, well, it would be nice if they had a little bit more depth after their
yeah.
five, but I don't like the math is just so heavily in their favor when they have a full lineup, and I think that matters a lot. I just
Mm,
do. Like I don't think like I kind of looked at Sharp and Ellenberg and Bishop, and I'm like, when I go to each of these guys, I go, okay, maybe Ellenberg could be this much better,
yeah.
maybe Bishop could be this much better, but I don't think they would had to be like dramatically better in any significant way.
Yep. Yeah. That's fair. Um, on the women's side, who do you think needs to bounce back?
I think it's UNC. I mean, UNC, it's one thing if it's 11th place at Virginia Invitational, right? It's like, okay, well, they didn't have Bryn Brown. It's a rust buster. Kelsey Harrington has an off day. They didn't have Bryn Brown or Sasha Naglia. It's like, everyone calm down. They're going to be great later on. And then they fall to 22nd at Nuttycombe, which is arguably worse. And it's still no Bryn Brown. And Naglia doesn't run well. And Harrington doesn't run well. And a handful of women don't run well, except for Alanis and Klingbeil. And you just like how this team's way more talented than that, like way more talented than that. And again, the Brown aspect, Bryn Brown not having her is significant in a major way, but even then you would still think that there'd be a little bit more scoring value there. So I'd have to say UNC, and I'm not ready to give up on them. Kind of in the same way that you haven't been ready to give up on Stanford for a couple times.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more avenues for North Carolina to improve. I mean, you just would imagine a lot of these women can't run this bad again. I'm trying to think. I mean, I think North Carolina is very clearly the answer. Looking through the rest of this list, everybody else ran. I mean,
Providence.
I would have liked to seen Furman run a little better, but I think they did perfectly fine.
Well, you
Providence
do know the
Providence is probably the other
right.
answer. Yeah,
Well, you do know with Furman though that they didn't have Bethany
they didn't
Graham.
have Bethany Graham. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we've done the math. Like they actually
Yeah,
would have
yeah,
been great if
yeah,
so on and so forth.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Providence was. I think Providence though, it's one of those things where it's like they were actually pretty decent at Virginia Invitational. Like it was fairly solid. They didn't have Jane Buckley. They still didn't have Jane Buckley this time around.
Yep.
Just everyone outside of like May and Flockhart ran very poorly,
Yeah.
relatively speaking. So not as panicked about them, but yeah, that it makes it very hard to justify justify optimism going into the postseason.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and I was really high on them. So I mean, you put Buckley back in there, and hopefully, like someone like Mooney just has a little bit better of a day, and they could quickly jump. They could have quickly jumped a lot of different places.
Agreed.
All right, last question. What team do you think booked their ticket to NCAA's, or maybe not booked, but like greatly improved their chances to NCAA's based off this performance? And we stick with the women.
I mean, it's got to be Lipscomb, right?
Yeah.
Like, outside of them,
I mean, Utah, I think, really further helped their cause, and
I was gonna say Colorado State.
yeah,
I think they get a few Colos points. I don't think they got any last time at Griak. I think this team is without Annabelle Stafford and a few others that I think they thought they were. I thought they were originally going to have.
mhm.
I don't. If this had gone just like a little more poorly, they were what 437 points.
Yeah,
And if this was 481 points, I don't know how many points they're getting.
no,
And I think this goes by. So I think like by this like narrow of a margin, they may have saved their season. So
yeah. All right. On the men's side, let's see. I think it might be like one of these Southeast teams. Honestly, that's like Furman. I think really
I think
obviously
Furman. I
they
mean,
picked
yeah,
up a
that's
ton of
definitely one.
points, but then you look at like maybe Wake Forest and Eastern Kentucky, like they maybe picked up a point or two. Like
New
they
Mexico.
yeah, New Mexico, big beneficiary. They probably picked up at least 2 points, you would think.
Actually, how about Boise State? Because you think about Boise State, not a factor at all, but they get 18th. That
Yeah,
means they beat Air Force, another team that had a very just flat out tough day.
yeah.
Air Force, Stanford,
Stanford.
Iona, Wisconsin, Georgetown, Butler, Michigan State, Gonzaga, Washington, Florida State. Those are all teams that they beat. And I just listed, I think of that 10 teams or 8 teams that I listed, I can see 5 or 6 of them making the national meet.
Yeah, you would think at least three, right? I
At
mean,
least 3. I mean,
yeah.
that's a really nice like cola. I think Air Force, Stanford, and Wisconsin, that's 3 right there.
It's gonna take a lot of Colas points, I think, to make it this year, just based off of like the fact that like Wisconsin and Stanford just gave everybody probably a lot of teams just 2 points easily. I mean, assuming that
That's true.
Stanford makes
That's
it,
true.
um, and and then I mean, you throw in like a team like Iona, who very well could make it as well, and that's they gave
Well, the
out.
problem with Iona, well, and they will get. This is the issue with Iona. Iona is just on the fringe because Syracuse and Harvard are the clear top
That's
2 in
right.
their region, right? So if
Yeah.
Iona gets third, it's like okay, well they're relying on points, and no one's going to push them in. So who here gave them the points? Wisconsin probably, but then Butler maybe.
Yeah, you're
I don't
probably
know.
right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I like
Uh,
Iona.
yeah. It's just they're it's a tough year when Syracuse and Harvard are this good this year. All right, I think that's all. Did you have any other? Did we miss anything on Nuttycombe? Those were like kind of my big questions.
No, I think that's good. We can move to pre-nats.
All right, pre nationals. On the men's side, we saw. Oh, I have the wrong pre nationals results up,
I got you.
so
I'll
I
take
will
it
let
from
you
here.
go ahead.
It was Arkansas at 35 points, Tennessee second, 89 points, Virginia third, 112 points, Montana State fourth, 137 points, Purdue fifth, 215 points. Arkansas with Ben Shearer
Yeah,
getting the win in a dominant win. I'm not a time guy, but he ran 22:55. Like I hate times in cross country, but that's super quick. They went Ben Shearer 1, Karami Yego 3, Patrick Kiprop 5, Jacob Bicklio, your former teammate 6,
mhm.
and Miles Richter in 20th, Lexington Hilton as their 6th runner in 26. What was your initial reaction when you saw these results?
Just blown away by Arkansas's depth more than anything. I mean, just to have four guys in the top six, and then they had a bunch of guys in the top 30 as well. Like I just quite frankly didn't see. Obviously, I think we were both high on Yago and Kipra, but to see Shearer run this well and McLeod run this well, I mean, that changes the team completely in terms of the firepower up front and just how many guys that they have that could be a very solid fifth scorer for them as well. I mean, this was probably one of the more breakout performances we saw all weekend. Was them dominating Tennessee and Virginia.
And I think Lexington Hilton could be better.
Yeah.
I mean, 748 3K guy, you think he's probably flirting with at least the top 10. I mean, that's really impressive. And so now I'd say, okay, like where are they in your just personal top 10, like off the cuff when you just think about it?
I mean, they have to be somewhere around 7 or 8 at this point.
Yeah. Who said that they could go as high as 7
I did
preseason?
not. I think it was someone
Yeah.
else on
Did
this
someone?
podcast.
To someone else? I heard he's also devilishly good looking.
Wow. Okay. I was curious what compliment you were about to give yourself, but you went with that one. All right. Yeah. No, they're just like I just didn't expect this much firepower to go along with their top duo, and they certainly have surpassed my expectations from like the rest of the field. Tennessee, I think this is about kind of what we expect from them. Like it's just going to be kind of a rotating cast of guys in that like 4 or 5 spot. I feel like this year. I mean,
Yep.
Dean Casey was great. I think he
Yeah.
he kind of solidified a lot of the things we thought he could be coming into the NCAA, finishing
Mm-hmm.
eighth. Abdallah is obviously a great low stick. Gabriel Sanchez had a great race in 11th, but then like this rest of the group, I mean, it's just going to be interesting. Lewis, Nahom, we like, and then it'll be interesting to see what other guys can kind of rotate in there as well. They just have so many options.
I don't really have more to add to that. I just like that's just Tennessee. It's a nice run, and I thought we'd get a little bit more on the back end, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, and Virginia were pretty much what we thought they would be, just a solid team, but everybody's just 10 spots
There's
back
just
from maybe where we
there's no
expected.
cohesion though. Like you get Martin and Will Anthony who are running well, 10th and I
Yeah.
think third. Like where were they? They were 10th and 13th, which is good. Nathan Mountain's okay, but the rest of that pack, like they're not having any like excessive scoring, but they're rallying around. It would be nice if they rallied around Mountain, where that's the back end rather than 10 to 15 spots back.
Yeah, I
So
mean, yeah, the top two are good, but you just would hope that there would be a more of a group right there.
yeah, yeah. So all right, women's race. BYU dominates. Carmen Alder is like the clear favorite by a lot, or clear winner by a lot. And then Maddie Elmore is the second option, second place finisher. And then Peyton No is third. Margot Appleton fourth. Jen Hudgens fifth. Sydney Thorwaldson sixth. BYU wins with 32 points. Arkansas second with 90 points. Virginia third with 104 points. And Oregon fourth with 117 points. First off, thoughts on Alder and Elmore and No going 1, 2, 3 in this race? Like, was that ever your predicted order?
No, and No's been just such a revelation as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really, there's just been so many really good freshmen this year that have just kind of come in and been awesome. But yeah, no, this was not this was not on my bingo card at all.
Um, so outside of individual though, I mean BYU, do we really have much to say here? They got 5 in the top 10. You know, maybe you could say that some veterans could have been a little bit better here or there. Hutchins looks good at fifth place there, but
Yeah, excited for Hutchins looking good. That's a good
yeah,
sign.
yeah, she looks solid. She looks very solid. Arkansas, No is third. Cindy Thorvaldsen sixth, which is a really nice development. And then you get 15th is Mia Cochran, a little bit of a drop off to Borda and to Mary Ellen Udele, who was 40th. I think Borda was 27th. It's my understanding, I've recently been told that Van Camp is not going to be back this season. I haven't personally confirmed that. But I would yeah, I don't think she's going to be back. Um,
That's unfortunate.
so yeah, in fact I don't even know if she will be back at all. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I have not reporting anything, but I'm hearing another. It's like the Casey Klinger thing, where
Yeah,
I'm
right.
hearing, but I'm not reporting anything.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean BYU looks great, and I still have I'm holding out hope for Oregon, but it's just again I you need that pack to be like a few spots up. And did you say Victoria Pat? Do we know anything about if she's running this year?
Yeah, so well, and that's it. So Virginia, 104 points, Oregon 117 points. They're all in this same boat of yeah, they're good, but they're not fielding like a heavy portion of their lineups. Like Virginia didn't field Tatum David, Esther Sealand, or Cameron Menninger, whereas Oregon hasn't fielded like Victoria Patterson, Emily Gerard, Kate, was it Lily Cridge, Kate Peters, and one other name. Oh, Harper McLean. None of those women have run the season. Patterson, we had been told that there was quote unquote optimism about her ability to be eligible. So I'm going to wait until Pac 12s to kind of be more firm about that. But I just don't think we can analyze these teams until we know for sure at the conference meet who's racing and who's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, anything else from this race?
Good run by Tennessee. Wake Forest is coming up, but no, that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we hit about 50 minutes there, and I
Good.
think we're feeling good. Awesome races this week from everybody. I'm sure we didn't touch on a lot of great performances. Only so much time, just a ton going on. But we'll be able to hopefully digest this over the next few weeks as we see a few more meets and get ready for conference championships when we see a lot of these teams go head to head again.
Yeah, yeah. So ratings and reviews, Apple and Spotify, go check that out. Obviously, content on the site. It's a lot. Some post race interviews, not a ton, but we're going to try to. We're working on a few things. We're trying to fine tune a few things. We're learning along the way. There's some big learning curves, but we've got a couple out there. So go check those out, and we're going to slowly improve. And I think you guys are going to, just start really liking again, like what I said. The site over the next 9 months. We're slowly beginning to put out more of a library there for our interviews. So that's all I got. And yeah,
All right, Garrett. Well, until next time, I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.